Nick Marshall loves women, but in his own way. Growing up backstage in a chorus line dressing room, thanks to his showgirl mother, he was surrounded by half-dressed women from an early age. For his mother, nothing was more important than her son, and he quickly became the dancer's lucky charm. From childhood, Nick was showered with female attention, which turned him into a shameless ladies' man. He's convinced he knows everything there is to know about women. Every morning, his housekeeper, who he simply calls Babe, wakes him up while collecting dirty laundry, half-empty whiskey glasses, and leftover snacks, all mixed together with various pieces of women's clothing. Straight into the wash they go. Nick never shows up at work before 10. He's an advertising executive, one of the best. And today is supposed to be his big day.
I'm so sorry. Your hands are full. Let me get the door for you.
His colleague Morgan and his ever-loyal secretaries are already congratulating him in anticipation of a well-deserved promotion. Nick walks into the office of his boss, Dan Wanamaker, ready to celebrate. But instead of a promotion, Dan delivers a curveball. Women are now dominating consumer sales, and that means the creative director position, which should have gone to Nick, will instead go to a woman. Just recently, advertising shark Darcy McGuire left her previous job, making her the perfect candidate. Nick is, of course, less than thrilled, but there's nothing he can do about it, except perhaps wait for the right moment to outshine Darcy and take her spot. After this unpleasant conversation, Nick heads to the wedding of his ex-wife, Gigi. There, he gets another surprise. While Gigi and her new husband go on their honeymoon, Nick's 16-year-old daughter Alex will be staying with him. Their relationship is far from perfect, and neither of them is excited about this new living arrangement. When Nick returns to the office, Dan introduces the team to their new boss, Darcy McGuire. Wasting no time, Darcy takes control, handing out boxes filled with women's products, everything from nail polish to pantyhose. Each employee is tasked with coming up with a marketing strategy for either one product or all of them by the next morning. Nick, who thought he had women all figured out, is about to realize he might not know them at all. At home, Nick drowns himself in wine, cranks up some music, and attempts to make sense of the pile of women's products in front of him. But things don't exactly go smoothly. Frustrated, he digs through his daughter Alex's backpack and finds a CD filled with teen girl pop anthems. After downing even more alcohol, he fully commits to the experiment. He slaps a pore cleansing strip on his nose, works mousse into his hair, applies mascara and nail polish, and, because he's already in too deep, decides to wax his leg. The pain is searing, but he powers through.
And 1, 2, 3.
Topping it all off by squeezing into a pair of pantyhose. Right as he's about to try on a bra, Alex returns home with her boyfriend. A heated argument erupts. She accuses Nick of not caring about anyone but himself, pointing out that he doesn't even remember her boyfriend's name. Determined to prove her wrong, Nick suddenly recalls the name and rushes to tell her, only to step on a spilled container of bath beads, slip, and crash headfirst into a filled bathtub. To make matters worse, the hairdryer he was holding falls in right after him. The electric shock is strong enough to knock him out cold until morning. Nick is eventually woken up by the sound of Babe, his housekeeper, grumbling as usual. But when he tells her to stop complaining, she insists she never said a word.
Honey, make me a little bagel with cream cheese. You know I can't think on an empty stomach.
For your information, I'm not even hungry.
Who said you were?
Confused but groggy, he leaves for work. As always, Flo, the hotel doorman, calls him a cab, cracking her usual dirty jokes. Except this time, Nick swears he hears the joke in his head.
You're welcome, my little sweet ass.
Before she even opens her mouth, choosing to walk instead, he soon finds himself in a crowd of women, and that's when the terrifying realization hits him. He can actually hear their thoughts. At the office, the mental noise intensifies. His female co-workers' thoughts come at him like a relentless tsunami.
He's such a schmuck.
And none of them are flattering. The suave lady's man image he had of himself crumbles within minutes. He even notices Erin, the quiet document courier, whose mind is filled with despair. She feels invisible, and worse, she's contemplating Strangely, the only people who give him a moment of silence are his secretaries. Turns out, there's absolutely nothing going on in their heads. Panicked, Nick confides in Morgan, but his friend assumes it's just another one of Nick's elaborate jokes. Dragging him to a meeting led by Darcy, Morgan urges him to get his head in the game. At the meeting, everyone is expected to pitch ideas for marketing the women's products from their assignment. Sticking to his usual style, Nick suggests an ad featuring a naked woman standing under a waterfall to sell lipstick. However, before anyone speaks, he already knows the reaction. His female colleagues mentally tear the idea apart. He goes silent. Desperate to salvage the moment, he borrows an idea he overhears from a colleague, a woman who takes headache pills not because she actually has a headache, but just to avoid sleeping with her husband. Finding the concept interesting, he pitches it to the group. Darcy acknowledges the creativity but doesn't seem too impressed. While she gives Nick a polite compliment, he knows the truth. He completely bombed. Nick's brain is in overdrive from the constant flood of women's thoughts. He can't think straight, can't focus, and certainly can't relax. Desperate for peace, he heads home and immediately ruins Alex's night by kicking out her prom date. Then, he repeats the same ridiculous self-care routine from the night before. Face strips, mousse, pantyhose, the whole deal. But this time, he takes it a step further. Armed with a hairdryer, he steps out onto the balcony during a thunderstorm, hoping to short-circuit his new gift with a well-placed lightning strike. And the universe does not disappoint. A bolt of lightning zaps the hairdryer, sending Nick crashing to the floor unconscious. The next morning, he wakes up hopeful, but there's a problem. He can't test if his ability is gone because, for the first time in history, there isn't a single woman in sight.
I need a woman.
No Babe, no Flo, no one. Determined to find out, he heads to the nearest supermarket, a place teeming with women. The second he steps inside, their thoughts bombard him. The ability is still there. Panicking, he makes a beeline for his old couple's therapist, the one he and his ex-wife used to see. Using a series of weird but effective tricks, he proves to her that he can really hear what women are thinking. Instead of freaking out, the therapist offers him a mind-blowing revelation. This isn't a curse.
But this is phenomenal.
It's a superpower. With the ability to hear women's thoughts, Nick can influence them, manipulate them, and get exactly what he wants. Nick doesn't need to hear that twice.
The world can be yours.
He immediately puts the advice to good use, setting his sights on the one woman who's resisted his charm for ages. Lola, the barista. She's secretly crazy about him, but had long written him off as a lost cause. Now, with a little insider knowledge, Nick effortlessly says all the right things and boom, Lola agrees to go on a date. At work, he works his magic on one female coworker after another. Women who once dismissed him now swoon. One even thinks,
Wow.
Why do I always feel like he's checking me out?
the newfound attention is exhilarating. With his confidence soaring, Nick turns his focus to the real challenge, Darcy. He's dead set on forcing her out of the company. Thanks to her private thoughts, he learns that Nike is searching for a new ad agency. It's a massive contract, and Nick wants it for himself. But Darcy warns him, Nike's focus is on women's apparel. The pitch needs to be perfect, and they have to think like a woman. Confident in his new ability, Nick assures her he's got it covered. As they brainstorm ideas, he listens in on her thoughts and voices them before she can. Darcy is impressed. At home, Alex and her friends aren't too thrilled about having Nick around, but he quickly turns things around by promising to take Alex shopping for the perfect prom dress. That evening, Nick meets up with Lola for their date. Things are going smoothly until they head back to her place. The problem? He can hear everything she's thinking. And no matter how attractive she is, it's impossible to concentrate when her mind is running a mile a minute. But Nick is not one to back down from a challenge. Instead of letting the moment slip, he adapts, listening to exactly what Lola wants and doing everything accordingly. The result? Absolute fireworks. Lola is left speechless, completely satisfied, and for the first time, Nick experiences what it's like to truly please a woman. With his mind set on landing the Nike contract, Nick starts using his ability everywhere, fine-tuning his approach to appeal to women's deepest desires. Even the coworkers who used to roll their eyes at him are now completely charmed. But something unexpected happens. While working closely with Darcy, Nick starts to admire her. She's sharp, creative, and incredibly good at what she does. Instead of just stealing her ideas, he starts complimenting them, building on her thoughts, and working as a real partner. Their collaboration produces some of the best ideas the agency has ever seen. And Darcy? She starts seeing Nick in a whole new light. Nick and Darcy started spending more time together after work, their conversations flowing effortlessly. His relationship with Alex was improving too, and he even took her shopping for a prom dress, finally embracing the role of a present father. While helping her pick a dress, he overheard a thought that nearly made his heart stop. Alex had decided to sleep with her boyfriend after prom. Determined to be a responsible parent, he sat her down for the talk. But Alex, unimpressed, shut him down immediately. Her mother had already covered everything, and she saw no need for Nick to suddenly play the role of the caring dad. Frustrated, Nick spent the evening sulking in front of the TV. Just as he was settling in, Darcy called, and on impulse, he invited her out for drinks. Over cocktails, she opened up about her divorce, explaining that it had been the reason she left her last job. She and her ex-husband had worked together, and after their split, staying in the same workplace had become unbearable. The night ended on a good note, with a kiss before they parted ways. Darcy had hesitated for a moment, wanting to invite Nick over, but he unknowingly cut her off before she could say anything. Returning home, Nick found an unexpected visitor. Lola. For 6 days, she had been restless, waiting for him to call, confused and upset that he hadn't reached out. In her thoughts, she was trying to make sense of it, finally settling on the idea that he must be gay.
You talk to me like a woman, you think like a woman. Nick! Admit it, you're totally and completely gay.
It was the only explanation that made sense to her. No straight man could possibly understand a woman so well. In her mind, she was pleading for him to just admit it so she could move on. Nick, seeing an easy way out of the situation, confirmed her assumption, letting her walk away satisfied with her own theory.
I'm gay.
At work, Nick overheard Erin's thoughts again. She still felt invisible. Curious, he asked the secretaries about her and learned that she had once dreamed of being a copywriter. She had even applied for a position at the company, but her application had been dismissed without a second thought by none other than Nick himself. Later that day, the long-awaited Nike presentation finally took place. Darcy insisted that Nick should be the one to lead it, despite his attempts to convince her that most of the ideas had come from her. She disagreed, confident in his ability to deliver. The presentation went flawlessly, and Nike was thrilled. That night, guilt weighed heavily on Nick's mind. He began writing a message to Darcy, ready to confess that he had taken most of her ideas. But before he could send it, she arrived at his door, inviting him to see her new apartment. They spent the evening together, growing even closer. The next morning, feeling victorious, Nick walked into the office only to be blindsided by unexpected news. Nike had agreed to sign the contract, but Dan had fired Darcy. Shocked, Nick argued that she was the reason for the campaign's success, but Dan refused to reconsider. Determined to set things right, Nick rushed to find Darcy and tell her the truth. But on his way, another crisis surfaced. Erin had not shown up to work, and there had been no word from her. A sinking feeling took hold of him. Worried that something might have happened, he changed course and headed straight to her apartment in Chinatown. The unfamiliar streets felt like a maze, but a kind, elderly Chinese woman pointed him in the right direction. With every step, he hoped he wasn't too late. A sudden flash of lightning struck a nearby transformer, sending sparks flying as the wires crackled with energy. At that moment, something inside Nick shifted. He could feel it, though he couldn't quite explain what had changed. Reaching Erin's apartment, he found the door slightly open. Stepping inside, his eyes immediately landed on an empty pill bottle and a goodbye note. His stomach twisted in fear, until Erin suddenly appeared behind him, tennis racket raised, ready to defend herself against the unexpected intruder. After exchanging a few words, Nick realized something shocking. His ability was gone. The constant flood of women's thoughts had vanished. For the first time in what felt like forever, there was nothing but silence. Despite the unusual circumstances, he wasted no time getting to the point. He told Erin that he wanted to hire her as a copywriter, giving her the opportunity she had been denied before. Erin, taken aback but grateful, agreed. For the rest of the day, Nick desperately tried to get in touch with Darcy, but every call was intercepted by her assistant, Tanya. Meanwhile, his ex-wife, Gigi, called to tell him that Alex had been crying all night and had called her multiple times. Devastated, without hesitation, Nick rushed to her prom. At the venue, Alex had locked herself in the bathroom and refused to come out. She had made the decision not to sleep with her boyfriend after all, and he had immediately dumped her. Heartbroken and humiliated, she wanted to disappear. Nick, determined to be there for his daughter, reassured her that she had made the right choice. After finally calming her down, he took her home, where she curled up in bed, exhausted from the emotional night. But Nick couldn't sleep. His mind kept circling back to Darcy. He had to make things right. In the middle of the night, he found himself standing outside her apartment. When she opened the door, he didn't hold back. He confessed everything. How he had used her ideas to try to push her out of the company. How he had let his ambition get in the way of doing the right thing. And how, somewhere along the way, he had fallen in love with her. Nick wasn't the kind of man to admit his mistakes, let alone wear his heart on his sleeve. But there he was, standing in front of her, asking her to come back, not just to the company, but to him. Darcy saw the sincerity in his eyes. She realized that for once in his life, Nick wasn't trying to charm his way out of trouble. He had changed, and maybe, for the first time, he needed saving more than anyone else. Knowing she loved him too, she chose to forgive him. As she pulled him into a kiss, Nick responded without hesitation, sealing the moment that had been a long time coming.